Today, we're finishing off the lava texture on our 6x4 Wargaming table, and we're going to see what else we can get finished on it too. And that's coming right up. Welcome back, and it's great to have you here. So, today, we're going to be continuing along with the build of our 6x4 Wargaming table for less than the price of a box of Space Marines. And today, I want to get the texture finished on the lava. I'd like to get some painting done and see if we can finish this thing off. I don't know if we'll manage to get it finished, but we'll get it pretty damn close at the very least. And it will look like something like this by the end of it. See, I don't actually know what's going to go there. But whatever we get up to will be there, and you'll be able to see. So you'll know before I even know. Although, actually, it'll be after I know, because I've got to edit this. You know what? Never mind. You'll see it up there, and we'll see where we got up to with this. So, no time wasting, let's crack straight into it. But before we do, if this is your first time here, welcome, and here's what's up. If you want to improve your wargaming, make your tabletop battles more epic, and give your wargaming budget more power, then make sure that you smash the subscribe button and ding the bell. That way you won't miss anything. Now, let's crack straight on into it. Okay, so here's where the board is up to. The filler has now set and it's leveled it out mostly. It's still kind of wavy looking. It looks kind of like this at the moment. But that's okay, because it does kind of look like a rather slow flowing fluid moving, which is kind of the effect we're going for. We're just going to make it look a little bit more natural, because some of the wavy lines don't really flow in a way that makes much sense at the moment, and you've got bits sticking up where there was bits of foam that were still a bit high. But that's okay, because we are going to make it look awesome. And yes, I used quite a lot of filler. I ended up using 5 tubes of filler to do this effect, which luckily filler is ridiculously cheap. It's like $2 a tube, so $10 of filler and it's done. Which of course, you don't have to do a effect like this. You could just stick the boards together, cover it in sand, and call it quits at that, which would be perfectly okay to do. But we're going the extra mile with this. Extra kilometer? Yeah, most of the world's metric. We'll say the extra 1.6 kilometers. So we're going to get some gap filler, and we're going to squirt it down in this area. We don't need heaps of it here, although we are still going to use a fair bit of it. But compared to how much we used elsewhere, we don't need heaps. So we're going to grab a brush. We're going to grab a brush that's a little bit wet with a bit of water in it, but not too much. And we're just going to use that to push the filler around and make it a bit easier to make it flow. And where you have the gap where the boards come together, it's okay to go over that, because we are going to cut it. We want a consistent texture across it to try to hide that as best as we can. Okay, so once you've got your filler spread around like that, you're going to get your brush and you're just going to dab it in just to stipple the filler. That way, it'll have a bit of a wavy effect, and it will hide out any of the marks from when we were trying to get the filler in there, just to build it back up. Now, as the filler is still very, very wet, as we did add extra water to it, it's going to try to flatten out a bit, and that's okay. That's what we want. We want it to have a bit of a rough texture while it is also kind of like, well, it's molten rock, so it needs to flow a bit as well. So basically, you just do that across the entire board where you've got your lava rivers running, and then you leave it to set, and then it's ready for base coating on that bit. Okay, so while the stippled filler has been setting, I've gone ahead and coated the risen up areas, or the bits that we didn't lower down. The bits that are now covered in PVA wood glue. So these bits here, little island in the middle, this here. Basically anything that's not our lava river has been coated in a thin coat, and I mean very thin coat of PVA wood glue. This is because we're now going to add a little bit of play sand to it, just to add some texture for when we paint it so it doesn't look perfectly flat. So we're just going to take our play sand and just lightly sprinkle it all over. Okay, so we now have a nice coating of sand across all the spots where we want some grit. It's probably a good idea to wait until the stippled filler at least skins over before putting sand on, because you don't really want sand to be in your filler. If something does get in there, it's not going to be a huge deal, but it's not ideal. So now we just have to wait for the PVA glue to set a bit, and then we will be able to cut the boards apart, because there's now a thin layer of glue and a thin layer of filler there holding them together. That'll need to be cut apart very carefully, and we will also be able to take the excess off once it's set, and then we'll be able to start painting it. So we're almost there, and it's gonna be mad. Okay, so the sand that we added for grit has all dried in place, the PVA is set and it's stuck down. However, getting the excess off of this huge board is going to be a pain in the behind. So before we try to shake the excess off, we're going to cut it apart, because now we've got glue and filler joining the boards together where the boards come together, which we don't want. So we're going to get our knife and make sure that you've got a nice sharp blade in there. And where the boards come together, there's a little gap here, so I can insert the knife into it and just start gently cutting it along. Brushing the sand out of the way will make it easier to see what you're doing as well. And you want to make sure that when you do this, you avoid cutting into the foam as well. Now, once you've cut the PVA that stuck the boards where you put the sand on apart, now you get to the tricky bit, because it's not as clear of a line where the filler has gone over. But same principle, you just take it nice and slow and be nice and careful. Something that can help is if you turn the board up a bit, just so that you get a more clear line. Moving the board can also help break the filler to get it to come apart. And as you can see here, I've cut into the filler that we put along the edge of the board, so we will have to clean that up. And that gets that board to come apart. We can now shake off the excess onto the other boards. And as you can see here now, it's kind of a bit rough. So we might need to add a bit more filler, do some sanding, just to get this edge to come up nice again. But now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other two boards. Okay, so now we've got a bit of damage on the edges where we cut the boards apart. So now we've got to fix that. So we're just going to use some PVA just to stick it back in. Any spots where there's filler missing outright, we can just add a bit more filler and just fill it and get it looking nice again, using the same process as we used to get the edge looking nice in the first place: filler and sandpaper. Basically, just get it looking nice again. Then we're gonna base coat it black, because it's lava, so starting at a dark color will give a really nice contrast, and it will be good to start painting. Okay, so now that it is all base coated and the base coat has set nicely, we are going to move on to adding some color to it, because right now it looks really, really black. So we're going to start with painting the basalt land sections of it, which have all of the grit and sand on it. And to do that, we're going to get some grey. And this grey is a little bit too light for what I want, so I'm going to get some of it and put it on a palette. I'm then going to get some black, and I'm trying a new thing because I couldn't get to the hardware store this week, so I went to a craft store and got some poster paint, and we're going to see how well this works, just because I'm curious. That should make a nice dark grey. Okay, and we've got it back as close to a dry brush as we're going to get it to be. And we're just going to kind of lightly brush it over the rocky areas. Okay, so that's all of the basalt sections painted with a light brush of grey just to give it a slight highlight. I have no idea how well you can actually see that because the view screen on my camera is tiny, but I'm going to put up a picture so I know you can see it clearly right now. Okay, so the next step is we need to put down the base color of our lava itself, which is going to be a nice dark red, because we're going to start with dark colors, hence black, and then build up to lighter colors in the middle of the streams where there would be more lava. So again, we're going to grab a palette, and I got just this cheap, nasty red paint. I have no idea how well this is going to work, but it's going to be an interesting experiment to find out. Okay, so we're going to get some red paint. We're going to add a bit of black to it. See how that does. Way too much black. So we're going to add some more red. And this paint is really, really runny. So you're just going to brush this into the lava sections. Try to avoid getting it up to basalt too much. There we go. So now we've got the base of very dark red. It actually kind of went a bit brown, kind of disappointed by that. But we'll put reds and yellows over the top and it shouldn't be too big of a deal. If you do go up the rocks a bit, it's not a huge problem because we're going, well, because lava would emit light and glow up onto all of the edges, so we can just form the base of the OSL effect. So you want to let that coat set, then we will move on to the next coat, which will be straight red. And because I'm not sure how well you can see it on camera, it looks something like this at the moment. Okay, so now our dark red maroni base color for the lava is all set, and we are ready to add some more layers to it. So for our next layer, we're going to add some straight red, just the reddest red you can get. Don't recommend using your miniature paints because you're going to need a lot, and that would be a very expensive way of doing it. Hence, we're trying the poster paint. So like we did with the dark red, we're just going to cover all of the lava bits. The dark red was just to take the edge off some of the black down below. And again, when you're doing this, try to avoid having it go up the rocks, but if it does at this stage, it's not a huge deal because that would just be glow from the lava. Okay, so I've now put down a layer of red, and this is the kind of color I was trying to get with the maroon. It appears that this is why I have not used poster paint on terrain before. Looking at my palette, I'm pretty sure that the new paint that I just put down has reactivated the last layer of paint and kind of just meshed them together. So now we have a maroon color, which is not as bad as it could have gone, I suppose. But I think for the next coat, I'm going to get some better paint, because we need it to be redder than this, really. This is not red enough at all. Okay, so we're back, and I have fixed my catastrophic mistake. I've gotten some proper paint, and I actually was able to wash all of the poster paint off. That's how shocking it was. It literally just washed off with water. Yeah, water. So, I got some proper paint. Well, I got some paint that won't just wash off with water, I should say. And I've gotten it back to the stage where we were up to. So just follow all of the previous steps using, you know, paint that's not going to just wash off with water is probably a good idea. This stuff from the hardware store, which is just house paint, is fantastic. Because it's cheap, you get a lot of it, and it doesn't wash off with water. Once it's set, that is. It'll wash off your brush with water, so you don't need to use terps or anything, which is fantastic. So I rebase coated the board, I put the dark grey over all of the basalt sections. I put down a 50-50 mix of black and red in the lava sections, and then lightly brushed over some just straight red, and I literally just asked for the reddest red that they could give me? Yeah, the reddest red I could get, and the yellowest yellow I could get. So, now that we've done that, and we're back up to where we were, we need to put the next layer on, which is an orange. So, I didn't buy an orange because I'm cheap, but I got yellow and red. So we're going to mix the two together to make orange. So you just put them on your palette and mix them together 50-50. And that's actually gone a bit lighter than I wanted it to. That's a little bit too yellow. So if you just start at 50-50 and then add one color or the other until you get it to a nice orange. Then just wipe most of it off your brush so there's not too much on there. And we're just going to give it a nice, very light brush, not going quite as far out to the edges as we did with the straight red. There, so now we've lit up the mid-sections of the pools of lava and the little lava rivers, and in some spots I've gone a bit up the edge. That shouldn't matter too much. We can always touch those edges up with a bit of black and grey later if we need to. So, the next layer of paint that we need to put on is some straight yellow. Now, you don't need to let the orange fully set before applying this. It should be light enough that it should skin over reasonably quickly. And so, once you've done that, if you just move straight on to putting some straight yellow down, very, 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 very light layer of straight yellow. And you more or less want to keep it just in the center of the areas. In these larger pools you'll have a bit more, but in the river it'll be more or less just a line down the middle. Maybe about that wide. Alright, so I'll put a tiny bit on the brush, and it's practically a dry brush at this point. That's how little of this yellow we want to put down. And we're going to use the side of our brush because we only want it to go right down the center. Okay, so we're just about done. We just have two more layers we need to put it on. So now we want to let that set for a moment, and then we're going to add the tiniest bit of white to the very center sections, and then we're going to put a wash over the top of it just to blend the different layers together a bit better. Okay, so you just get some white, and you're just going to, oh so lightly, brush it up the middle. Just to give it a really nice highlight. Okay, so now we're going to make our red wash just to darken it all back down and blend all the different layers together. And to do that, we're just going to take some of our red paint, put it in a container like so. That's probably way too much for the amount that we're going to use. So we just take some paint, and then you just add some water until it becomes kind of runny. So get some clean water, and probably don't do it on your table. That'll probably be plenty. Then just mix it around, and we now have a nice red wash that we can use, and we're just going to wash that over all of the lava areas. Then, once you've got your wash on there, all you have to do is let it dry, and given the amount of water that's in there, it's probably going to take a little bit to dry, and it should come out looking pretty mad. So there you go, that's the completed lava theme table, and I think it's come out pretty good, given that in total it would have cost less than the price of a box of Space Marines if we hadn't had that issue with the paint, because I had to go out and buy more paint than I originally intended to. Now, obviously, prices will vary where you are, so it might cost a bit more, it might cost a bit less, but it is still a very cheap method of getting a 6x4 wargaming table, and it will take a similar amount of effort to if you'd bought a commercial one and painted it up yourself. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit more effort because you're actually making the table yourself, but I think it comes out really well, and the money you save is worth the time. Especially if you enjoy it. It's really easy to justify that. Just one thing I do need to make a very important note of. When you are painting your lava, before you put the wash on, make sure that all of your layers are dry. Because in some spots, now the wash is dry, I've noticed that the process of putting the wash on has actually pulled some of the other layers of paint around and mixed them into the wash, which is not what we were going for. But I will just have to fix that up when I get a chance. So make sure that all of your layers of paint are dry before applying your wash to prevent this from happening. And given how light and easy to transport this table is, I think I'm going to make a few more in the future. So we've already had suggestions for swamped themed tables, so I think that will be the next one we make in a couple of months when I get around to that. If you have any suggestions for any themes of table you'd like to see, chuck it in the comment section below and we'll get to it. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up so we know that you like it, so we can keep making stuff that you like. And as always, if you want to improve your wargaming, make your tabletop battles more epic, and give your wargaming budget more power, then make sure that you smash the crosshair and ding the bell. You'll subscribe and I'll be able to share with you more battle reports, terrain tutorials, and strategies to make your wargaming experience more epic. And I'll see you next time.